This podcast is brought to you by Collector Legion. For all your single and gaming needs, there is no substitute. And if you're lucky enough to find yourself in LA with time to play, check them out for the best in-person gaming experience this side of the Pro Tour. Welcome to Split Second Sorcerers. I'm your host with the most stops on his Moto account, Isaac Sears. And today on the pod, we have the champion of Pro Tour Mommy, the player who showed Reed Duke what the future of Magic looked like when he was only 13, and the reigning world champion. It's
the one, the only,
Nathan Steuer!
Hey, Isaac. I'm so
What's
glad to
going
be on
on?
the pod. Yeah,
What's
I'm
going on,
doing
homie?
good.
I and the people need to know before we get into the pleasantries. If you could change just one thing about Magic, whether it be structure, bannings, unbannings, what would it be?
If I could change one thing, I think that I would put more money into it.
Says the guy who won it all this year. Oh yeah, no, it's a little sugar on top.
Just like Wizards help us out here. Just put some more money into organized play. Yeah.
What's the biggest or most embarrassing punt you've ever done?
In the top 4 of Worlds, I cast the wrong 3-drop on turn 3 and that lost me a game, which knocked me down to the lower elimination bracket, but that was pretty embarrassing. I cast a Corpse Appraiser instead of a Fable after having the same scenario come up maybe 50 times in playtesting.
Putting on a hard mode to show us how awesome you are. Respect it. Who's the first player you remember idolizing?
Probably, good question. Probably PV overall. I think PV, like reading his articles, him and LSV were like the two people that I was like, oh my gosh, like they're just on another level, and definitely top 2 in my mind.
What's your favorite non-Magic the Gathering story from an MTG trip?
So when I was in high school, I agreed to be part of a team for a GP in Detroit, and I didn't tell my parents because I knew they wouldn't let me go. And actually, I think I asked them, and they said no, but it was already too late. I'd already committed to a team, and so I booked myself a ticket, and I flew to Detroit, and I made it all the way to Detroit before they found out that I wasn't there. I was supposed to be in school that day, and so the issue with my plan was that the school had called my dad, but otherwise I think it was flawlessly executed. Yeah.
All right. Well, of cautionary circumstances, would you rather find yourself winning at 1 life or on turn 5 of turns?
Winning at 1 for sure. Yeah, not close. Winning on turn 5 means that I messed up somewhere. If the game has gone on that long, yeah.
What's your favorite tourney venue to play at?
I think, I like playing in the Las Vegas Convention Center, to be honest. I think I've just been there so many times.
Fond memories?
Yeah, but also in terms of like best location, I guess maybe the Richmond Convention Center is good because I really like all the food options near there, and like in the convention center it's pretty nice and spacey, and yeah, I don't know. Those are two that come to mind.
What's the worst card you've ever registered for a constructed tournament?
Okay.
Let me explain.
I think individually it might be Sidisi's Faithful, but just because it was a key role player in the Rally of the Ancestors deck, I won't really count that. We'll say Ram Through is probably the worst one. Just 2 mana, deal damage to a creature.
Fight! Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. The other ones are like Elysian Caryatid, just 2 mana dork, 1/1 that can easily be killed. There's some good ones though. Yeah.
What's the first Magic card you remember hating?
Ooh. I hated playing against Desecration Demon. I really despise that because that was a mono blue Devotion player, and I hated Desecration Demon. That's like the first one I remember being like, man, I hate this card. Or Burning Tree Emissary. That's the other one that I hated playing against. Yeah.
What's the most difficult match of Magic you've ever won?
Definitely the finals of Worlds last year. I know it's kind of like a cop-out answer because it's like, wow, like the highest stakes and the most difficult. But beyond just the match having a ton of difficult decisions. I think the hardest part was staying mentally in the game at all times, because when you're in like in a circumstance where there's such a large crowd behind you and you understand the stakes of the match, even if I could like sort of separate and just be in the zone for the match, it was still the sort of thing where like I could hear the crowd through my noise deafening headphones on stage. And I had one moment in the match where I thought I had totally lost a game in this matchup, are playing against Esper, and I'm playing this Crixus deck, and they resolved the 5-mana AO Dragon, which has a die effect. When it dies, you look at the top 7 cards. It can put 2 cards in play that total 4 CMC, or 1 card. And I killed this card as a Hail Mary, which is not something you really want to do in the matchup. You want to find some other way of removing it.
Yep.
And he completely whiffed on this card, which was both insane, because it's like, I've never seen this happen outside of this Worlds match. Like, it just rarely happens the way the decks are constructed. And also, it just felt like, oh my gosh, like, this is just intense. Like, I can't even believe what's happening right now. And so, probably the craziest, yeah.
If Magic stopped existing, what game would you pick up to fill the void?
Probably poker. I mean, to me, it just feels like my mind works in these strategic ways, and it seems like that would probably be my default place to move to. But I've also really been liking Lorcana that I've been getting into recently, and if they had an organized play system, I'd probably get into that. Yeah, those two right now are in my mind.
What's the first Magic card you remember? Whether opening in a pack, seeing somebody play with it, what one stands out when you try to reach back in the annals of little kid Nate?
I think Eldrazi Conscription, to be honest. That's the first one that I can recall. I know. I played at summer camp, and we thought Eldrazi Conscription was like the most busted card in the game, because we all just had like horrible decks that we tried to ramp into that card, and one person brought a deck with 4 copies of that card to summer camp, and they were the target all summer.
Oh, you went to summer camp with Raptor? That's interesting. What's the best time period of your favorite constructed format?
I would have to say the Khans of Tarkir. I don't know what the other block was, but it was the format with Rally the Ancestors, the Abzan deck. I think it was after the traditional Theros Khans block, so one set after that, whatever the next block was. But that's standard format with like Jeskai Black, Rally the Ancestors, Abzan, and there was like a Black-Red Dragons deck in that format. It was probably my favorite to play.
What was your biggest Magic level up moment?
So, I think the biggest level up was realizing that when I was in a slightly advantageous position, I didn't have to flinch first. Like, I don't have to blink, and understanding that playing my cards is not something that's forced upon you. Like, you're allowed to do nothing in games. It's like a hard lesson to learn. I think early on you get to a point where you're prioritizing, like, okay, I just play the most expensive card I can play every turn, and that's like a pretty decent baseline strategy to try to figure out what your most mana efficient play is. And then you get to a point where sometimes you have to recognize, wow, like, they're in a position where if we do nothing, the game's going to be in my favor, so I can be reactive here and just choose to do nothing for a while, and they're going to have to do the first move first. And recognizing when you have even the slightest advantage that could put you in that position, and not having to do that in a major position where like you're in desperation mode is difficult. And then the other one that I feel like I have to add is, I think understanding that my opponent is going to make like a logical play, and trying to respond to like their range of things was something that took me a while to learn. Like understanding, okay, well, if they had something last turn, they would have played this card, and on the next turn, like, that means this card is more likely. So that was kind of further down the road where I realized, like, how do I figure out what range of cards they could no longer have, and what they can't, what they have in hand right now was a part of it, yeah.
What's your favorite deck you've ever played?
I already mentioned it, but Rally the Ancestors, I just loved that deck. All the triggers, Collected Company. At some point, I 12-3 to GP playing Siege Rhino and Anafenza as my sideboard plan, so I would board in like 4 Anafenza, 4 Siege Rhino into my rally deck and just cut the Collected Companies and try to go big. And I loved that deck. Yeah.
What's your favorite card to try and wheel in a limited format?
So, recently I've been playing a ton of Cube, and Zernorb was the card that came to mind. Like, I've been trying to make all these land strategies work with Zurin Orb, and had a ton of fun with that. But I'm not sure in, like, a normal limited environment my favorite card would be. Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
All right. What's that? All right. The pod judge has just informed me that time was called 9 minutes ago, and we only have time for one more question. So, carrot cake or apple pie?
Apple pie.
Heathen. All right. As we come to a close here, do you have any upcoming tournaments the fans can sweat you in, or perhaps a place where the good people can find you or your content?
Yeah, I'll be competing in Worlds at the end of this month in Las Vegas, so you should come check that out to see if I can reclaim that crown and keep it for another year. And if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at NathanSteuer1, or you could book a Metafy session with me for coaching at the same link as well.
Awesome. Well, that does it for this episode. Thanks to my guests, Nathan, Wizards of the Coast, and you, the viewer. If y'all have any guests or questions you'd like to see asked on this program, feel free to let me know in the comments or just hit me up on Twitter at twitter.com/@likeikes. And remember, folks, it's handshake, sign the slip, then throw your O3 deck in the trash, not the other way around.